I think what stands out for me in using peer review is that it needs to match with the overall style of teaching. So I think if you have a straightforward, I'm in front of the classroom and students take notes and there is no interaction style, that wouldn't match that well. What we do is more like individual assignments, presentations from peers to other peers. Groups are having unique work that they're presenting to one another. So I overall try to use a more experiential, flipped, engaged mode of teaching, and peer review goes well with that overall approach, because you are almost forced to change hat from reader to writer or reviewer. So instead of just producing work and then hope a good mark comes back from the echo chamber, you're actually involved in the process of defining what is good work versus poor work. You see marking criteria, you're evaluating, you're judging things. So in terms of Bloom's taxonomy of cognitive skills, this is at the very top, evaluation and judgment, as opposed to just analyzing and reproducing knowledge. In terms of tools that I use for peer review, there are a couple of different ways available how you can do it. There is a tool called WebPA, which is part of Moodle, of our teaching system, which you can use for within group peer review, where group members are rating each other's in terms of contribution. And there are other tools available, including PeerMark in Turnitin, to have students judge each other across groups of students. In peer review, you are acting more as an editor or mentor, which is helping people to do informed judgments about themselves, about others. So you're giving a bit of responsibility to the students, and you're involving them to the capacity that I feel they have, being able to tell poor work from good work, and you're just helping them along the way developing those skills. That could be, for example, through giving them a marking scheme upfront. So to having very clearly defined rubrics, what actually constitutes, in the lecturer's opinion, an above average or below average performance. And then they are using these rubrics to evaluate any particular type of work. So it's a bit of a training of making judgments. I think the flipped classroom is essentially about using a model in teaching where you don't run through endless slide decks in the lecture, but you're rather alternating between tutorial style teaching, presentations by student groups. And I think that peer review goes particularly well with this more experiential and engaged style of teaching and learning. I think task design for a peer-reviewed task is important. So you need to find the right level of complexity. It can't be too complex so that students can't judge it anymore. It needs to be having sufficient complexity, otherwise students feeling they're not doing any sort of meaningful evaluation, they're just doing your marking work. That shouldn't be. So I think in my case we have an oral presentation component and a written component for which I give about 10 different criteria which make up good work, and that works out well in terms of task design. Another element that I'm using in terms of task design is making the assignments link to one another. So the individual assignment, which students are peer reviewing, goes into the group assignment. So students have an interest in reading good individual assignment because it will help them to write their own group assignment. In that way, students are also intrinsically motivated in reading good assignments, not only through the marks they are getting for their review quality. Peer review is part of an active learning approach, and it gives me a better insight into how students think, how they evaluate work. What stood out for me is the experience that students, they almost take a lectorial tone in their reviews, so it's almost like they're trying to replicate what Daniel would say about an assignment. So it's sometimes a bit funny for me because they're almost speaking like an old professor and giving advice to their peer, but from a very high level point of view. I would say in summary, peer review has worked well for my students, for me, for the course. It's a way of getting students to do cognitively more challenging work, judgment and evaluation. It's a way of getting them more engaged in the process. They believe the marks are fairer because the peer review process is the same for everybody. It's completely transparent how it works. And I think it's a good learning exercise for students in terms of changing heads and seeing text from a different perspective. Comparing the previous years to this year, I see a substantial increase in the quality of the actual assignment texts compared to the traditional mode. So I think I'm going to continue using peer review.